The docking bay of Helen 9 station smelled faintly of oil, old steel, and the recycled air that every traveler grew accustomed to after long journeys. It was not a glamorous port, certainly not the glittering hub of the core worlds. Instead, it was a remote refueling outpost orbiting the dim red sun Yather, where the travelers who came were usually desperate, running away, or trying to begin again. For Cale Rin, it was simply another stop in his endless wandering. He was 42 years old, but looked older from the weight of solitude carved into his face. He had no family left. A mining accident had taken his father, illness had claimed his mother, and the relationship he once cherished had ended when his long voyages across the stars kept him away too long. He had grown into a man who spoke more with starship hulls than with people, more comfortable with starlight than with laughter. Cale's freighter, the Wayfarer's Echo, docked with a hiss of locking clamps. He checked his wrist console. 3 days until the next shipment job. 3 days of nothing but waiting. He stepped down into the arrival concourse where travelers and merchants moved briskly with purpose. It was then he noticed her. She sat alone on a long bench near the customs desk. Tall, cloaked in layered robes of silver blue, her presence seemed both dignified and haunting. Her skin had a pale sheen, not quite human, with faint luminous lines like constellations spreading across her arms and neck. Her face bore the serene, angular features of the Veari, a race that had once been celebrated across the galaxy for their artistry and wisdom, but now dwindled in number after centuries of slow decline. What drew Cale's attention, however, was not her alien beauty but the sorrow in her posture. At her side rested an ornate trunk, clearly a bridal chest, marked with the sigils of union. The symbols glowed faintly, broadcasting the unmistakable fact. This was a wedding dowry, prepared for marriage. Yet no one had come to greet her. Hours passed as Cale returned to the dock for supplies. Each time he passed, she was still there, unmoving, eyes fixed on the flow of passengers as though waiting for someone who would never come. By the station's evening cycle, Cale could no longer bear the quiet weight of her loneliness. It mirrored too strongly his own. He approached. "You've been waiting a long time," he said softly. Her eyes turned to him. They shimmered faintly, deep as nebulae. "Too long," she replied in a voice like aged wind chimes. "He will not come." Cale sat down carefully at the other end of the bench. "Your husband-to-be." She gave a small nod. "The union was arranged across the stars. I traveled months to reach this place. Yet the one I was promised to has abandoned the oath. I am left here, a bride with no groom, too old to be chosen again." Cale studied her face. She was indeed older, perhaps by human terms the equivalent of 50 or 60 years, but her bearing held dignity and strength. Still, in her world perhaps age bore stigma. He felt something stir in him, a mixture of pity and recognition. Here was another soul abandoned by life's cruel timing. "What will you do now?" he asked. She looked at him steadily. "I do not know. Without union I cannot return. My people see an unwed elder as one who has failed her purpose. To return would be shame, exile." The silence between them grew heavy, filled with the hum of the docking bay. Then, without planning it, Cale spoke the words that would change both their lives. "Then wed me." Her eyes widened, as if he had spoken madness. "You, a stranger." "I am a stranger to everyone," Cale admitted, his voice low. "A man drifting without anchor. I have nothing but my ship and my word. But perhaps two abandoned souls can build something together." Middle. The proposal should have been impossible. Interspecies unions were rare, especially between humans and Veari. The customs, the biology, the lifespans, all different. Yet something in the woman's eyes flickered with desperate hope. "My name is Leora," she said after a long pause. "I was once keeper of the Dawn Halls on Vare Prime. I was betrothed to a merchant lord who now casts me aside. If you take me as spouse, you must know this. I am no maiden of spring. My years are many, my kin expect no children of me, only companionship until life's quiet end." Kale nodded. "My name is Kale Rin. I ask for nothing but honesty and the chance not to be alone anymore." And so, beneath the artificial twilight of Hellion 9, they performed a simple union rite. A station magistrate, barely interested, recorded the vows. Leora opened her bridal chest and withdrew a small crystal band, glowing faintly with her people's bioluminescent patterns. She placed it on Kale's wrist. He, in turn, offered her a copper ring he had once bought in a forgotten market, a trinket never given until now. When the rite was sealed, something shifted within Kale. For the first time in years he felt tethered, not to duty, not to cargo runs, but to another being who had chosen to stay. Life aboard the Wayfarer's Echo became different with Leora. She moved with quiet grace, decorating the utilitarian halls with luminous cloths, humming soft songs of her people. She cooked aromatic meals from alien herbs she kept in stasis pods. And at night she told him stories of the Vayari, of crystalline oceans that sang with tides, of art woven from light, of temples that glowed brighter with each generation's joy. Kale, in turn, showed her the constellations from his charts, told her of the planets he had mined, the wars he had witnessed from afar, the long nights when silence was his only companion. Slowly, their loneliness began to soften. Yet challenges came. On one port world, merchants sneered at their union, muttering about a too-old alien bride, clinging to a human pilot out of desperation. On another station, authorities questioned the legality of their bond, suggesting it was a sham to exploit trade privileges. Each time Leora stood tall, her voice calm, asserting her dignity. And each time Kale felt protective fire rise in him, determined never to let her be abandoned again. But the greatest test arrived when pirates struck. They were traveling through the outer belts of Varos when raiders disabled their ship. Masked figures stormed aboard, searching for valuables. Kale fought but was outnumbered. It was Leora who saved them. From her bridal chest, she withdrew a shard of crystal pulsing with ancient energy. She raised it high, chanting words in her tongue. A burst of light filled the corridor, blinding the pirates. The air vibrated with a harmonic resonance that forced the attackers to flee, clutching their heads in pain. When the danger passed, Kale stared at her in awe. That was no simple dowry gift. "It is the heart of dawn," she admitted, lowering the shard. "An heirloom of my line. I was to present it to my betrothed as bond gift. Now it is yours, for we are one." Kale touched her hand gently. "I don't need heirlooms. I only need you." In the months that followed, their bond deepened. They laughed more, shared meals, argued over navigation routes, and sometimes simply sat in silence watching starlight pour across the void. Leora's age became meaningless to Kale. She was radiant, wise, and fiercely alive. Ending. 1 year after their union, Kale brought the Wayfarer's Echo to Vare Prime. Leora had hesitated to return, fearing scorn, but Kale insisted. "Let them see you are not abandoned," he told her. "Let them see we chose each other."